So the astrology of November 2022, that's what I want to take a look at in this video. Check in with just some of the major themes and turns that are going to come to our way astrologically this month, and examine some of the symbols and just see what we can glean from a little peek into the astrology of the month ahead. So welcome here. We're in between eclipses, and this is November 2022's astrology. And I want to start by just checking in with what the chart will look like on the first day of November 2022. I pulled up a chart here for London, kind of the center in some ways of the world. But you can see here, we begin the month, and this will be a major theme for all of the month, with this Scorpio stellium. We've got Mercury now in Scorpio by the 1st of November, the sun in Scorpio, Venus still in Scorpio, both planets under the sun's beams, maybe restricted and blocked a little bit with the Scorpio sun taking center stage. And the South Node with that stellium, kind of a draining force, a spiritualizing force, maybe requiring us to turn away from the outer world and go inward. Certainly the water element and the martial Scorpio has a large dose of inner life and inner world. Mars ruling here the stellium, these 4 planetary points, 3 traditional planets, and Mars being retrograde in Gemini as we start November. I think there's a major component of this month's astrology of looking back, turning inward, examining the inner life, especially in a period like this, which is between eclipses. It's a great time to be just insular in the best of ways, maybe giving yourself extra time to journal or think about your life, or take a walk alone if you need to, or just be willing to give your inner life space and the feelings that you're having, the emotions that are emerging. We also start the month with Jupiter back in Pisces. So there's this water trine by sign that's happening all month. Again, water energy. It's a night sex sign. It's the inner life, the art, the creativity that comes from being in touch with the emotional body and the emotional spaces. All of that access to kind of our truths, even if they're sometimes painful, the scorpionic, we can sort of celebrate and sing truth with this water. Trine dominates the astrology of this month with a backward-looking Mars and a sign of thinking and writing, Gemini. So that's kind of the tone I want to just set for it, some of the major themes. And I want to keep in mind here that when we think about Mars, what are we thinking about? Ruling the stellium and being prominently featured as it's still slow in the degree of its direct station to start the month. Mars in the tarot, wonderful symbolism of the kind of breaking away. The thing I love about the tower, yes, it's a shake up energy. It's an energy of kind of breaking and shifting and shaking, sometimes shocking us. Mars often can be tied to Uranus. I think about, Mars and Uranus being similar in terms of the shocks and the quickness of how the changes can emerge when you're dealing with both energies. But you have here 2 individuals being broken free of the tower. That's why I love the tower card, because there's a freedom element. And this is where you get that kind of rogue maverickism of Mars, where it's like the former structures being locked into a former way of being. Mars can break us out and break us free. And so you might want to think about how eclipse season is releasing you, this very martial eclipse season with the Scorpio solar eclipse, Mars and Gemini ruling Venus, which rules the second lunar eclipse in Taurus, because Venus will be in Scorpio. What are you getting freed from here with these eclipse changes and alterations? And using this side of the tower card symbolism as maybe a more optimistic approach or version. So let's go to the next chart for November. Here we go. I wanted to highlight in this chart the moon with Jupiter. The moon will be with Jupiter in Pisces only 2 times during this final stint of Jupiter in Pisces. And each of these, when the moon is with Jupiter triggering the Piscean, it's a final time in a once in a 12-year cycle of Jupiter being in Pisces, the ruler of Pisces home back in Pisces, to clean up the Pisces sector of our charts, to inject some pure Pisces into our veins and lives. And when the moon triggers, it can very much activate that. We're talking here this for November chart. It looks like it's a maybe Thursday, Friday, and into Saturday zone, maybe even like Thursday, Friday, the 2 main days here, 3 and 4 November. So just be contemplating Pisces, another major theme of November's astrology. What is your Pisces? How does it operate? Where is it in your chart? Because you get the ruler domicile there, Jupiter back for the final time. Next chart I want to look at 8 November. So this will be that following Tuesday. And by this time, we're here in this lunar eclipse, this second lunar eclipse. I don't know about you all, how you did with this first eclipse. For me, it was nice. I actually enjoyed it. I was sleeping, resting, and doing some of that insular work that I mentioned, just kind of being with myself and aware of the eclipse and trying to just be present for my clients and for people in my life, and maybe more of a support role for my eclipse. And I enjoy that. I really do. This one, the lunar eclipse, we've now, we're going to be completing eclipse season pretty quickly after this. And so this first part of November is this land between eclipses, this kind of strange place where fate may be still operating and working in your life. But this eclipse has me a little nervous. I'll just be totally frank. And I think it's actually the next degree here where the eclipse is happening. It's right as the moon comes to that 17th degree, or the border between 15 and 16 degrees. I screenshotted this a little early, but look, it's with Uranus. Again, the shocks, the jolts that I described earlier, the maybe unexpected nature of how things can go. But look how close it is to the North Node. That's also a destabilizing force where energy can be compacted and then injected into our reality through this kind of North Nodal appetite energy, with Uranus in the North Node and then squaring Saturn within a 3-degree range, which is so important in the Hellenistic system, that 3-degree orb. So this looks very challenged to me, and much more so in some ways than the Scorpio eclipse, because of how close Saturn is and Uranus in the north and the nodes. And so this is on election day in America. Be prepared for wild news stories to emerge, for crazy stories, unexpected stories, all kinds of things that may, want to grab your attention. If you are someone who maybe wants to have a protected media diet, you may want to just kind of disengage from news. If you're someone who loves the news, I love news. I'm like a news junkie, always have been my whole life. So I'll be like really engaged in all of these twists and turns, trying to tweet about it, respectfully and center the astrology. But this eclipse, really challenging, really difficult, I think. So be prepared for it here on the 8th. Once this is done, and by the way, I wanted to come back here and just talk about the death card, because this is the card that's associated with Scorpio in the tarot, mainly because even in this lunar eclipse, look at it, the ruler by domicile is Venus, still in Scorpio with a stellium ruled by Mars, ruled by Mercury. There's a mutual reception between Mars and Mercury in this chart, or an exchange of signs as they're not making an aspect. And you've got this Mercury Cazimi here. Look to use your thinking and your analytical powers and your magical powers as necessary to survive and protect yourself from whatever's arising in the eclipse, because you've got a powered Mercury here. But this Venus is also ruled by Mars. So it's, again, heavy Scorpio. Just by rulership, we come back to the heavy Scorpio, even with this lunar eclipse. Death card is so beautiful. Again, it's regenerating things. It's letting things go. Major eclipse season themes: surrender, release, let things go. Things aren't serving you anymore. The gods may be coming into your life to rearrange, re-examine, and purge for you. Consent to that process and surrender. And I think after eclipse season in November, there's some real opportunities, particularly here. We come to the 13th of November. I love this chart. It's a grand water trine. It's finally a moon this month that is really safe and protected from the malefics. We have to wait until the 13th of November, 12th, 13th November, this Cancer moon, to really get a good moon, because you have ruled by retrograde Mars, opposite Mars when it's moon's in Sagittarius, moon in exile in Capricorn, moon co-present with Saturn in Aquarius, moon squaring Mars in Pisces, moon ruled by retrograde Mars in Aries, a lunar eclipse, moon co-present with Mars. It's only this moon where we can finally settle in. So if you're looking for some activity, electional activity, or waiting where you have to do something, these could be launch potential dates if you have to. I don't like launching during Mars retrograde at all. I would wait till really end of January, early February to really do some elections. But if you have to, this is the moon I would go with. Something with this this Cancer moon applying to Jupiter. Try to get that application to Jupiter. Okay, let's keep pushing through here. I wanted to just mention about the water element that's so operative in November. Remember, we just looked at a chart with a grand water trine, Jupiter and Pisces, Scorpio stellium, all in this first half. This is the card in the tarot corresponding to the water energy, the water element. It's the Hanged Man. And I love it because we're suspended and waiting, feeling our feelings. We come into this world for being encased in water, right? Head first. Most births are head first. So this is a birth canal, and we're suspended in this water. And it really does fit with this theme of kind of going inward, going with the inner gestation of the emotional life, and letting whatever's being born for you during this eclipse season, giving it the space to go through this processes of birthing. And so, I think we're all being born, right? The whole collective is being born anew. The whole world is being born anew every moment. Well, we are too. So give yourself permission to kind of wait it out, waiting the Mars retrograde out, waiting eclipse season out, and waiting until these skies get a little bit more supportive of dynamic, active energy, and just kind of gestate and let yourself be born into the new person you're going to be. Okay. Next chart, 17 November 2022. This is where the month right here, 16-17, in the course of the same 24-hour period, both Mercury and Venus enter Sagittarius. This is going to be a big kind of de-seriousification of the month, because we go from these kind of heavy scorpionic energies with the backward looking Mars and Gemini, to a little bit of a dynamic, active outer world fire sign ruled by Jupiter exploring energy, right? Venus's condition improves tremendously here. Mercury begins to improve. They're both evening stars now and heading to becoming visible again. And they're ruled by a power Jupiter in Pisces. And so this Jupiter sector, what's happening in your chart with Pisces and Sagittarius, becomes a major player here second half of November, getting into truth, generating things around kind of power moves in your life, people that can support you. All of that Jupiterian searching is very much activated here right around 16-17 November. And it continues into what I've talked about. Actually, this is just another moon I really like, 20 November. You get a Libra moon, and it makes an application to Venus, its ruler, after Venus has now moved out of Sagittarius. So it's much stronger. So look for this Sunday, Saturday, this weekend here, 19-20 November, to have this kind of maybe some nice activity, very Libran. Maybe you'll do art, connection with friends, these kinds of things, as to celebrate Venus's improved condition. And Venus and Mercury are dancing together, by the way, all month here, talking about love, talking about pleasure, talking about art. I know I had a conversation with a friend recently about a movie, The Giver. She recommended it to me, and I've just watched it. So we're going to talk about that movie. I love these kind of Venus Mercury combinations as they dance together all the second half of the month, and then they come out together out of the sun's beam. That happened out from the sun's beams and visible. That will happen later, I think, in early December, much more a part of December's astrology. But let's keep going here. Here is that Sag new moon. We're officially done with eclipse season by the time this new moon arrives, and we're now in this very active, mutable period. And it's more pronounced and prominent. Instead of that stellium in Scorpio, we now trade it for a stellium in Sagittarius, ruled by a stationing direct Jupiter, 23rd, 3 November, right during Thanksgiving if you're in America. I just think we're about to get like highly dynamic and much more kind of maneuvering that's going to happen during these Mars retrograde and Gemini period, like the planning and maneuvering. I think there'll be some opportunity here just to think and contemplate what's true for you, and how do you want to act, and maybe do some of that kind of pre-2023 planning and shifting here. Certainly just celebrating life and love and the gift of life and the gratitude that can come with reality. I think about Jupiter being a gratitude and celebratory energy, hopeful energy, right? That Valens has it ruling hope and what we can engender and make and hope for and wish for. So I'm looking to do some of that work, frankly, during this time. This new moon's opposite Mars. So Mars comes in and you can't escape Mars in the mutables in November and then really until into March 2023. Any immutable transit will be having to deal with a Mars retrograde vibe. So it does dampen it somewhat, but we can utilize that Mars retrograde, look backwards, dig into the past, and try to think about reviewing old actions and everything along those lines. You can check my video out about how to work with Mars retrograde in Gemini, released a month or two ago. Okay, final chart, 30 November 2022, and we finished the month again with that second Pisces moon, the last of these Pisces moons, only two. They both happen in November. Moon with Jupiter for the final time, Neptune as well. And in a chart like this, you've got Mars, Jupiter, the moon, Mercury. Mercury now just sort of coming out of into visibility. It doesn't become visible until December. Both Mercury and Venus are not visible until December, but it's just emerging here in phases, right? In a few days, it does emerge. But you have in this chart 6 of the 7 traditional immutable signs. I think November is very much a time for shifting and changing and reorienting. Mars retrograde can be good for that, reviewing, excising, pruning, all things martial. But then you have all of this other mutable support of this kind of Jupiterian search for high level truth and reality framing. You may want to do some reframing of your reality with this energy. But a heavy mutable period, what are mutable signs? Changes. It's between two states. And so look to be morphing and giving yourself permission to morph and change as you get in and complete November. And so the final thing I want to look at is this temperance card corresponding to Sagittarius. We get a Sag cell stellium, second half of November. Look, I love this symbolism because she can fly. That's mutability, right? But she's pouring water from one flask to the other. And that's the changing. You may want to decide where your water is going to go, right? The framing, your reality framing, your belief systems, what you think about the world. And you may need to redistribute some of your own, powers. That would be the water in this case, to different cups in your life. That's the power of the engendering of Jupiter. It allows us to see anew and be refreshed. And so that is what I'll leave you with here. Temperance. And, I think that's going to be it. That's the astrology of November. And I hope you have a wonderful November. Just a little peek here. I'll probably do some breakdown videos. Definitely with that eclipse, I'll go into go into it deeply. And I may look at some other things. Maybe I'll look at Sagittarius. It's kind of a sign I'm interested in exploring more. But we'll see. There's all kinds of videos coming out from me this month. But enjoy November. I hope this helped you plan for your November. Have a wonderful time. And I will talk to you very, very soon. Take care.